I'm speaking today with Aaron Jeffery fighting Douglas Lima on September the 7th, Bellator San Diego at the Pachanga Arena. Aaron, you're in training now. The fight's coming up. We're just a little bit over a week away. So, how's everything going ahead of this?
Good man. It's been a solid training camp. Very smooth, like very little bumps, bruises, injuries. I'm coming in healthy. I was just down in Florida at Kill Cliff for 4 weeks. Had a lot of sick training partners there. I'm back home right now with my team, just kind of staying sharp and working technical stuff. And then I head out Sunday, and then it's fight week.
Well, you touched on something there that I was going to ask about, and I know you go down to Killcliff for camps now, as well as training, of course, at Niagara Top Team. And I saw a post you put up with Onglan Sang a couple of weeks ago that actually mentioned a bunch of injuries. Now, you said you've avoided them, so was that just kind of tongue in cheek, that post?
Yeah, I made a reel like a couple months ago or something on Instagram. It was something I saw. It's like what men do with a couple torn ACLs, bulging disc, dislocated elbow, whatever, whatever, and then men with a cold or flu and they're like in a hospital bed. But I made this reel and it like blew up. It got like hundreds of thousands of views, so I just wanted to make another one.
Well, good stuff. And
But
now
yeah, I do not have any of those injuries, no bulging discs and no torn ACLs.
I kind of assumed that you didn't, but
You never
uh,
know.
did see you there training with Ong La. I think you were training with Brendan Allen a bit as
hmm
well. What's it just like working with guys of that caliber?
It's awesome, man. It's so cool to be in a place with so many high level guys that are like on the same mission. Like everyone shows up every day, works hard. Like we all have the same goals and we're helping each other out. We're pushing each other. So yeah, it's a sick atmosphere.
And of course, Allen, you've actually got some experience with. You competed against him a while back. When you look at the run he's on now, does that tell you a lot about, where you're at as well?
For sure, man. I mean, the fight is a long time ago now. I think we're both totally different fighters. Like I was 6-1, he was 11-3. Like we've both doubled our records since then. But to be able to get to train with him and like know the guys that he's beating in the UFC, and train with him and have solid rounds, it's yeah, it's confirming that I'm doing the right work too.
Well, absolutely. Before we get to this fight, I do want to look back to the last one, of course. Fabian Edwards. Fight didn't go your way, but what were you able to take away from it?
Um, I mean, obviously there's always like skill set stuff that you can change, but I think it was more like mental stuff for me. I think for whatever reason, I was just not able to pull the trigger and like execute the game plan that I wanted to. So I've just done a lot of work on kind of the mental side of things. Obviously, again, getting better physically, technically, whatever. But I think there was some things that I needed to work on from the kind of psychological standpoint.
When you talk about working on the mental game, I've talked to fighters who have used sports psychologists. I've talked to fighters who have tried meditation. In your case, what has kind of been the approach?
Yeah, it was a sports psych actually. And speaking of Brendan Allen, he was the one who recommended him. I heard him talking about him in the gym and said he changed his life. And if you know Brendan Allen, you know he's like not the type of guy that's going to believe in like any woo-woo kind of stuff. So I was like, hey, if Brendan likes this guy, I'm going to give him a shot. And I've been working with him for the last couple months, and yeah, I like it a lot.
Good stuff. Well, this is obviously another big opportunity. When you look at that Fabian Edwards fight, and we know he's now going to fight for a title, you got an ex-champ here, Douglas Lima. If there was a guy who was going to be in like a Bellator Hall of Fame, I think Douglas Lima would be one of those guys. Multi-time champ, face of the promotion for a while. So when you got this opportunity, was this, even more motivating than a normal, I don't want to say normal fight, but, just the name involved, did that get you a little more excited?
For sure, man. It's he's good and it's like kind of a high risk fight because of his skill set, but it's a very high reward fight too. Like you get a name of someone that nobody knows who they are and they're a killer. You're like, that's a kind of a low reward, high risk fight. But this guy, it's like it doesn't get any better than that. He's a what, 2 or 3 time champ. He's been in the promotion for more fights than I've had in my whole career. Very big name guy. So yeah, it's a very good opportunity for me.
Was he someone that you watched a bit of when you were coming up in the sport? Because he had those fights, they weren't even that long ago, really, but Rory McDonald, Andre Koreshkov, you had the trilogy there. Was he someone who you watched a bit of?
For sure, man. Like when I was early coming up in my career, I was a big fan of him. It seems like he's older than he is. I think he's only what, like 36, 37, something like that. Feels like he's been around forever. And yeah, I was definitely a fan of him when I was early in my career.
Well, all that goes to the side, of course, come September 7th. How do you approach this? How do you see this one playing out when it comes to time to get in the cage?
Um, well, I expect it to be a tough fight. He's been finished, I think, once in his whole career, so he's going to be a tough guy to put away. Obviously, he's got very heavy leg kicks. Everyone knows that. But I think he's kind of showed some holes in his game, maybe in some of his last performances. And I think I can take advantage of that.
You mentioned this being high risk, high reward. Where do you think this does leave you in the middleweight division in Bellator? Because, like I said, Fabian is going to fight Johnny Eblen next, but after that, kind of seems wide open. Do you think you can kind of jump in there?
I think they already had the next guy in line, actually. I think they did another number one contenders fight since my fight. I think it's going to be Costello, who's next in line for the title. So I don't know. I beat Lima. Hopefully, next fight for me is going to be that number one contender fight again.
Wanted to talk to you as well. I spoke to Lorenz Larkin earlier today, and one of the things he's big on is activity. You did fight in March. You're getting the second one in here. Are you hoping maybe you might get on a card towards the end of the year? There's November, and then there's that New Year's Eve card that's announced.
Yeah, I would love to, man. I want to stay active, just like Larkin said. I mean, that's what most fighters want. I don't know a ton of guys that would like to fight once a year. I know guys want to fight three, four times a year. The thing with Bellator is they just don't have a ton of events, right? So it's kind of hard, I think, to put their roster like to have guys fighting three or four times a year. Um, but yeah, I'm always in shape. I'm always ready. So whether I get something booked or I end up taking a short notice or whatever, I would love to get another one in.
Sort of with that on mind, now you've got the PFL owning Bellator. There's some opportunities there. They don't have the middleweight division in the PFL right now. There's still the super fight cards, obviously the Ngannou card, that Bellator versus PFL crossover card if they do more of those. Do you kind of look at it as, hey, maybe I could compete on one of those here and there as well?
I would love that, man. I think those are very cool events. Um, yeah, I think that would be sick.
And then if they were to, because we don't know really what's going to happen, there's been talk, hey, and actually recently of maybe they're going to bring in some more weight classes. So would the PFL format appeal to you if they opened up the middleweight division?
For sure. I love the regularity of it. Like guys know when their on season is and when their off season is. You get what, like three regular season fights and then potentially the playoffs. So yeah, I think it's awesome. Keeps you active, gives you again some regularity in your life, which is cool and not always a thing for fighters.
Would you miss the elbows too much? Because I actually watched that elbow breakdown video you posted not too long ago.
Um, yeah, probably. I mean, I wouldn't not do it because of that, but yeah, I think I would miss it.
I kind of get it because if you open up a cut in the season, all of a sudden that guy's out for the season. It
Yeah.
is what it is, right? But
Yeah, I was at the last event and I was talking to someone about it, and it seems like maybe in the playoffs they should like allow it again, but I don't know. It's probably hard for fighters to be like changing rules like that and trying to remember what you're supposed to do.
very true. Speaking of changing rules, it looks like we are getting some rule changes in the sport, including the 12-6 elbows. What did you think of that change that's coming up?
I mean, about time, kind of. Like the 12-6 elbow one is always a weird one. I was just talking to someone about this. Like, it's really not a dangerous weapon. I don't even think you're going to see it happen often now that it's illegal. Like, it's such an awkward way to throw an elbow straight down like this. So I don't think you're going to see tons of it. I don't think it's going to change too much.
And then the downed opponent rule as well. Do you think that's going to get rid of the kind of, I guess it's designed to get rid of the gamesmanship a little, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that too, I don't think you're going to see that. Like, I don't think it's going to look like a totally different sport. Guys are going to not be in that position knowing the rule change. So, yeah, I just don't think it'll change all that much.
Well, definitely be interesting to see. I think the first card that's going to have those rules might actually be in Canada. It's that
Hmm.
UFC Edmonton card that
Oh, sick.
Jasmine's going to be on. So
Yeah, yeah.
that'll be one to keep an eye on. Getting back to your card, Bellator San Diego, like you've mentioned, Fabian Edwards and Johnny Eblen are going to be in the mix at some point coming forward as well. Just wanted your prediction on that fight when it happens. You've shared the cage with Fabian. How do you see him doing against Johnny Edlin?
Um, Fabian is like a very good striker, obviously. I just think Johnny is too well rounded. I think his wrestling's too good. I think if Johnny fights a smart fight and uses his wrestling, I think he's gonna take it.
And that fight, I believe, comes about a week after yours. Do you put
Hmm.
it's going to be over in the UK? Do you put a lot of credence in home field advantage, so to speak, or does that truly matter in fighting?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. Not for me anyways. Like I just fought there. I didn't, doesn't make a difference.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go in a moment. Last one before I do, Aaron, just give us a prediction if you've got one for this fight, September 7th. How do you see this playing out against Douglas Lima?
Think it's gonna be a sick fight. I think people should tune in, and I think I'm gonna come home with a W.
Well, looking forward to it. Aaron, thanks very much for the time today. Looking forward to the fight.
Thank you, man.
You're welcome.